Be a good show today.
All right, it is going to be a good show. It's good to be back in the studio.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions and the constant news cycle of changes in our industry, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice.
This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole, here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine. For everyone listening, Byron Lazine is a man today. He is 40. Happy birthday, my friend. We're obviously referencing the legendary press conference of that quote, "I'm a man, I'm 40." But
play the clip,
birthday,
Bobby.
buddy.
If you haven't heard that clip, I've been waiting my whole life to have a reason to play it, but the birthday was a couple days ago. Appreciate it.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid.
We appreciate you. Yeah, halfway to 80. He's the youngest person on the pod, and Lisa's busting his chops about being halfway to 80. So
a third of the way to 120. That's where I'm at.
Love it. All right, so we got a jobs report hot off the presses, you two. Let me give you the numbers here. The U.S. added 142,000 jobs in August, which was a pickup from July, but not as much as economists expected. And the unemployment rate came down to 4.2%, down from 4.3% the previous month. And there's some mixed signals here. We've seen some reactions with the market already. The 10-year hit a 52-week low today, which is awesome news. And, I think it puts some uncertainty about what's happening with this Fed meeting coming up in less than 2 weeks. The CME Group's odds changed already from yesterday, where they had a 45% chance of a 50 basis point decrease. Now it's down to 39, and the 6 percentage points went towards a 25 basis point decrease at the next meeting coming up in the middle of September here. What do you two think about this jobs report? It's kind of uneven. It's mixed signals, like we said.
You can go first, Byron.
All right. It still seems pretty split. It's been leaning more, meaning what the Fed's going to do first, and then I'll go to the jobs report. It's been split, 60-40 for, I don't know, I feel like the better part of a week and a half on half a point or quarter a point. This didn't change that all that much, a little bit, as you mentioned, leaning more towards a quarter point. So I feel like that decision might come down to the wire. Wells Fargo, of course, in their forecast is projecting a half a point here, a half a point in November. They're pretty bullish that it's going to be a full point by November, which would certainly move some things. I thought, and you noted, I thought the most interesting takeaway from the jobs report was the fact that the 10-year hit a 52-week low. So do we get momentum there where we continue to see the 10-year move down? That's what we're watching, obviously, as it ties to the 30-year fix pretty closely. Unemployment going down from 4.3 to 4.2 is good news. You didn't want to see, we saw the sharp spiking in unemployment. So to see this maybe flatten out a little bit for the moment, that's good news overall for the economy. If we saw it go from 4.3 to 4.5, now we're on that ride of the SAM rule, which Lisa talked about a few pods ago. The miss though is, so the numbers were supposed to come in at 160,000 on the forecast. And so they missed at 142. And we know that when we just saw that revision a few weeks ago, the misses were even more overstated than this, right? So this could be revised downward even more. So I guess that's something we got to watch out for. At least it didn't come in hot, and then you're going to get another revision that moves it down. This is coming in under, and we'll see if it moves down further when they revise it in the future. But not much news here other than, again, I think that 10-year hitting the 52-week low is a positive for the housing market.
Yeah, and with revision, I think if my memory is correct, there's just 1 month so far this year where they've revised higher. Every other revision has actually ended up revising down. So yes, it's more likely than not that the 142 will actually go down even lower.
And Lisa, when you account for all those previous revisions, I know the number is 800,000. I think me and Tom talked about this one week when you were out. Somebody did a calculation that the number is actually close to 1.2 million on the miss. And then when, again, we talked about this on a previous pod, but when you actually dig into the hiring, a vast majority of the hiring is government hiring. So our economy is being propped up a little bit by government spending right now. And so I do think the Fed needs to do that 0.5 point cut to get more, private investment into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing to kind of look at is that the number of open jobs is still low, right? So we're not seeing that the number of openings is, they're, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that they're filling them as quickly as possible. It's not like hiring's down because employers can't find people. They just don't have the positions that they're filling, which is interesting, slightly different than 2021 when there were not as many openings because they were just, or more openings. Sorry, I'm all tongue-tied this morning.
That's what, Lisa, I'd like to ask you, because I know in my businesses, and we're small businesses and, in relationship to the economy, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we have an opening, we're filling it either from within right now, or we're spreading out the tasks, because with, some of the tools that we can utilize, certainly like with BAM, you can utilize AI to, I think, a more significant degree than maybe a real estate team, just because the tools in what we're doing at BAM are a little bit more, ready to go for everybody who needs them, versus the real estate team is catching up.
Yeah.
But we're either spreading tasks out or going from within. So there, we haven't put many job postings up this year. Probably the lowest amount of job postings I've put up in a 5-year period.
I would say the same. And it's interesting. I think we've become a little bit more cognizant of expenses. One of the other interesting things, and I don't know if you guys see it, and I remember if we go back 12, 18 months, I don't know, when we all started doing this pod, and we had all been talking about, as we were hiring, we were paying more to fill open positions to attract people. We're actually finding that we don't have to do that right now, and we're actually sliding back a little bit in comp for some of our positions, which is an interesting dynamic shaking out. I've got usually, like, it's an inside sales position that's open, because almost everything else we're filling from within. And it's a fascinating question, because I had been wondering, Byron, as we were thinking about why that was. Is it just that as our small businesses become seasoned, we have more ability to hire from within, or is it really tied to the economy, right? I think, you look at the tenure of the people that are here, and as their skill sets increase, are they able to slide into different positions? Or what you doing, Tom?
One of our lights went out.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Or
Well, you're just dusting off that studio after the long summer in Jersey Shore.
Yes. Well, Nick's not here today, unfortunately. So otherwise I'd have him fixing this. It's all good.
I think that's a good point, Lisa, because 5 years ago, I wasn't in a position to hire and elevate from within.
Yeah, we just didn't have the depth of company that we have now, both in terms of, like, people. Like, Tom, before you got on the podcast, Tom and I were talking about, if you think back, it's been 3 years since the fateful day in Dallas, where we all had that
hot dog bet.
Yeah, the hot dog bet. Where it was a come to Jesus about really kind of starting to get serious about building businesses, right? And if you really think back, the difference between your business and Tom's business, and even my business 3 years ago, and the size of it, and the caliber of people, the number of positions that you have, it's really like your business has matured as well.
Well, I think the decision, I'll let you go, Tom, here in just a second. I think the decision making has matured also, where it's like in the past, and certainly over this 3-year period, if somebody left or we were trying to meet a new mark, it'd be like, let's just go hire that position. Where now, sometimes going to the players on the team, I just understand sometimes where you can let some things go to get the important task done. And hiring's not always necessarily the answer, where let's just reallocate our resources and focus on the really important stuff and not all the nice to haves. And so obviously I think anybody right now, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit later in the pod. I know we've kind of diverged from the jobs report. There is something else I want to mention about this, but maybe later on in the pod, we could talk about the fact that these next 4 to 6 months are going to be critical to make those right type of decisions on what's the right size of your business, what's the right investment. You know, you don't want to take your foot off the gas right now, but the next 4 to 6 months are going to be critical in real estate businesses.
I totally agree with that. I see a lot of opportunity the next 4 to 6 months. I actually just went through a major hire out of necessity, where we had to bring in a new marketing person. Our person had been in with us 10 years, you know, wanted to do something else. Very grateful, all good. That's not something you can necessarily elevate from within. The amount of candidates we got, I mean, I think I had a total of maybe 14 or 15 interviews that came in, and we had, I wouldn't say our pick of them all, but there was enough out there for someone that had been with us a very long time. Kind of echoes your point where there's more talent on the streets than you might realize right now, and I think that's reflected in this jobs report. And you know, when you look at, they have the real unemployment number, which includes discouraged workers and those holding part-time jobs. That's at 7.9%, which is the highest reading since October 2021. So, you know, there's a lot that we're in this era of the side hustle, which I'm not a big believer in. You want to do one thing, great, right? I would imagine you two agree. There is more talent on the streets, though, just from going through that hire. And that wasn't something that wasn't an elevate from within position. I know, Byron, you just went through one of those, and that's a great thing to do. But marketing's a little different skill set than the majority of the people you have on a real estate team. So,
for sure,
it's and
I've made that mistake before.
Yeah, but I mean, going through it was very interesting because I was surprised at the people that were available and the caliber of people that were out there. So that was, I think that really echoes your point, Lisa.
Yeah, the 4.2%, the headline unemployment number going down, that's the one that everyone pays attention to. But yeah, thanks for bringing up the 7.9% being in the highest reading since October 21, because that could tell more of the story. I guess we're, you know, I said, you know, I'm pleased to see the 4.2 because we're not continuing to see that sharp increase on the main unemployment rate that people look at. But that 7.9 sitting in the background, you know, it shows you how much part-time employment increased by 527,000, while full-time employment fell by 438,000.
Yeah, big number.
Like, was that position, the marketing position, did you go full-time or part-time there?
We went full-time.
Full-time W-2. So
yeah, I mean, that's
the gusto.
You know, and I you know, but you also talked about using like AI and some other things. And I would argue this position has changed a lot since we made the last hire. I mean, you think back 10 years ago, the world was very different, but there's different things that we're doing right now. And I'm clear with utilizing that kind of tech and AI in different things. You talk about like email marketing, right? You talk about design work. There's some things you need the human for, and there's some things you can automate. And the best person in that position, and really any position, is using a hybrid of both to get more out of their time. So I think that's a really great point, Byron, you're talking about. And the marketing position is obviously a lot more like BAM than a real estate team when you look at it.
Yeah. And so just going back to this, all the growth being in part-time, that would be something that is a little bit got to be in the back of your head to continue to watch on this. There was a senior economist for North America at Alliance Trade says, I don't like this a whole lot, you know, reacting to this morning's numbers. It's not a disaster, but it's below expectations on the headline. And what really bothers me is the revisions. So like we mentioned earlier, watch out for the revisions. This is certainly going the wrong way. So the senior economist doesn't believe, even though the 4.2 comes in under, you know, last month's 4.3 reading, you know, taking everything into consideration, doesn't feel like we're heading in the right direction. To me, that would also be a bigger reason why we need a half a point in, what is it going to be, like 8 days now, 8 or 9 days from now when the FOMC gets together?
Yeah, a little over that. I agree with you. I mean, I all signs are pointing towards that's the right move. And the fact that it's basically been like 50-50 odds by the CME group, I think that's very telling. I mean, this number adjusts all the time. So I pulled this chart up like 3 times a day. And I mean, it just yesterday they were at 45-55. And, you know, so I mean, and a month ago, there was a 68% chance they were going to make a 50 basis point increase. So you can see there's a lot of data flowing in here. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, I'm pulling for 50, guys. I don't know about you. I'm hoping we see 50.
This was one of the most significant pieces of data that they were looking for before the meetings. I don't think there's much, you know, left that might move the needle. So I don't know. We'll leave it with Jay Powell's hands and see what he does.
All right. So we also have some other news. I want to talk about, and we'll get to this Rupert Murdoch story in a second, but inventory is now at its highest level since May of 2020. And what I am clear on, and I want to give some tactical advice here after we get your reaction, is that this is major news. You need to be shouting from the rooftops. This needs to be distributed in all channels if you're a real estate agent right now, and especially if you're a knowledge broker, because this has been the number one complaint. The rates are going to be what they are, right? That's probably not, you don't want to see rates come down a lot lower to those 3 numbers because something bad is happening in the economy if that's the case, like we've talked about. Housing inventory, the largest level since May of 2020. That was right when the market got opened up. May 15th was the date here in Pennsylvania. So that's a very significant moment in time where we were able to do more things. That's when the pandemic started to lay up. I see this as something, it's a 35.8% jump compared to August of last year. I'd be talking about this constantly. What's your reaction to the inventory climb that we're seeing?
I mean, we all knew inventory was going to increase, right? We've been talking about it for months. And I think anybody who didn't expect it to increase and who hasn't been studying the scripts is definitely going to struggle. We've been saying it for a while. I think we're also seeing it in, I don't know about your markets, but we're seeing some price softening. We just had a listing this week. I was working with one of our agents. It was on the market last year, didn't sell. We just repulled the CMA, and our comps actually show that the price went down by about $10,000, which is a really interesting spot.
I think we're going to see price softening for the next 4 to 6 months. So what I said earlier was the next 4 to 6 months are critical because transactions are going to be suppressed. We're coming into the seasonal time when transactions get suppressed in a all-time low suppressed time period of the last couple of years. We haven't seen anything like this with the population that we have where you're actually under 4 million on existing home sales per the last NAR report. And so that for all those reasons, your next 4 to 6 months as a real estate professional, it's real critical to be in the game, to have the right habits, to, have the right systems and processes working for you. On the flip side, huge opportunity for buyers and for you to invest yourself. If you have some money, that you want to spend over the next 4 months before the end of the year, great opportunity for investing. Why? That inventory number that Tom and Lisa just reacted to, highest since 2020. The price softening is real. Certainly Sunbelt states, it's very real. There are, homes in this town that I'm saying in Naples that are selling, 6-figure, 7-figure reductions off of the peak.
7-figure?
That's in the super luxury range. So that's an outlier. But
Can you imagine $1 million price reduction?
You've got 800,000, 8 homes that sold for 800 and villas that sold for 800,000. Let's just take that more of a normal price point for here. Just 24 months ago that are now selling for 680, 690, 700. So there's huge shifts in certain pockets of Florida, Southwest Florida being one of them, where you're seeing, off of the peak. Now, again, these homes doubled or more since this time frame in 2020 that we're going back to. So, they peaked out a couple of years ago, and now it's cooling off of that peak. But here's why there's an opportunity, because we're pretty sure that the trend continues. Nobody knows for certain, but the tea leaves are reading that the trend continues where this 30-year fix continues to drop. And after November, there's going to be a lot of certainty in the markets. They're going to know one way or another, who's in the White House. So the markets are going to go back to certainty, less volatility. You have a 30-year fix that's projected to be in the 5 3/4 range. Right now, there are buyers getting locked in under 6%, depending on their personal situation, which lender they're working with. So that could look more like 5.5, 5 1/4 come spring season next year for some buyers. And when you get into that range, I think we've all been of the belief as you get closer to the low 5s, there will be competition. Competition always goes up in the spring. Prices always go up in the spring. So you have the natural timing of prices coming down, probably a little bit more significant, this winter season. or a deceleration in appreciation if you're still in an appreciating market. And I just think this is the opportunity for the buyers before they get back into what looks like a competitive environment, because the overall, and Jerome Powell talks about this a lot, the overall issues that we have on inventory, like in this country, aren't going away. So you pour in more inventory in the spring, you might see a pop in prices at that point. And that's when they naturally occur anyways. And this is when you could naturally, get a better chance at negotiating a better deal for yourself. So I push buyers into understanding the 20-year trend of prices come down in the winter. We have other factors that can push it down more. The highest inventory since 2020, an election year. So more people on the sidelines, like, don't do the sideline thing, do the opposite. And in the spring, when everybody's competing, you'll already be settled into your new property.
I really agree with this, Byron. And what I am clear on is that there's going to be a lot of agents that go take market share because they're accelerating their business, getting this message out. And it's really becoming that true knowledge broker. One of the things we've seen probably more significantly than anything else since the August 17th change is that agents are really getting interviewed on the purchase side. I mean, it's happening at a high level. And so many folks were focused on the change and this and that. What they need to be focused on is educating consumers, talking to as many people as possible, and setting appointments with them. And if there's any objection about this, I've got to sign a contract before I look at a home, you've got to get them in the office, get in front of them, meet them at a Panera Bread, a Starbucks, whatever, a Zoom call, a video call, and start talking about this stuff. Because I would argue maybe 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 agents really understand this in the marketplace. And I'm using that 87% failure rate as the barometer there. And when, some of the language we've been using, and this is multi-channeled, right? Imagine a well-crafted email you send out to your database, to all your people that have been on in the nurture bucket or the unresponsive bucket or the watch bucket. Hey, we're seeing this happening. Wells Fargo just, adjusted their 30-year fixed by 1/4 of a point, their projections for the fourth quarter. You get that information out there, you send it out, then you call everybody and you follow up with them. You develop a well-crafted text message to send that information out. You will get responses, and then you can have a conversation of, hey, Byron, I know you and Nicole were thinking about getting into a bigger place for your family, and I'm not sure if this would be for you, but we've seen the most savvy home buyers. They jump into the market now because there's always opportunities coming into the market. And I'm not saying we move any sooner than you want or do anything you don't want to do. I'm saying let's keep our eyes open for the right opportunity, since I know you and Nicole are looking for that 20, 30-year property. So would you be open-minded to strategizing about how we do that? And that's the kind of conversations knowledge brokers are going to be having right now. And what that's going to do, there's going to be transactions that happen the next 4 months. But then once January and February hit, those people are going to be busy. And that's when things pop, especially in markets like the Northeast where we are. But that happens all across the country.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what demographics of old leads, old clients, old customers are you trying to engage the most? Where are you seeing opportunity in your databases? And then I'll share where we're kind of finding some in ours.
So where we've seen the most, and we've been we've been very intentional with our email marketing. We have stuff going out to the entire database. We're using a lot of I'm going to plug BAM in a box here for a second. If you're not using that and you're part of BAMx, you're missing out. These are professional copywriters that do these things. It takes all the thinking out of it. We talk about marketing and automating that, Byron. It's a great way to do it. And where we've seen a lot of action, a lot of people, there's all the stats, right? It's 3 to 12 months or where most leads convert. 12 plus to about 36 months, because they're all the people that maybe got a little frustrated or they threw in the towel, or maybe they got a home to sell and they were looking to get into something bigger. Now their kids are 2 years older, right? So you think about these things, there's going to be some intent there. So we found some real success with older leads. And it's, again, this works for every age of lead. It's not just one, because when you have knowledge and you're educating people, that's what's going to win in the current marketplace.
Yeah, for us, instead of a demographic, we're looking at everybody in the database who has said they are also going to sell a house when they find the right one. Okay, and so inventory goes up, favors their ability, obviously, to find the right one. They're ready to go, but nobody's gone on a listing appointment yet. And there's a couple things to your advantage. Certainly, if you're in the northern states or the Northeast, where the leaves are about to drop off the trees in 30 days. I was just up in Connecticut earlier this week, and boy, it was beautiful. But I said to my agents, I said, listen, this isn't going to last, guys. This is 75. In the morning when I went to the gym, it was 58.
Yeah, it was cold in the morning up here this week.
The leaves don't like that. And so take it while it lasts for the next 3-4 weeks while we get the most perfect weather of all time up there. But it's going to turn quickly, as it always does in October. The leaves are going to fall. And what happens when the leaves fall? The properties just, to me, look pretty gross when it comes to marketing. If you're scrolling through, one of the apps as a buyer, and you want something to stop you. So you want something that looks beautiful as that opening image to stop you in your tracks and get you to click. You're not going to increase traffic unless you get more clicks onto the property, right? This is just basic, marketing. And so I'm encouraging every agent who's in that situation. It's not going to work in a Florida or a California or something like that. But when you're in a seasonal market where the season is about to change, go to these homeowners and say, listen, I don't want you to be on the market when you're not ready. But there's two types of buyers once we find the right house for you. One that makes a promise that is, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to, our house is going to sell quickly. We're in the best price range. We're going to do photos this week. We're going to do video this week. Then we're going to get it on the market. And then there's the buyer that says, look, we did all of our marketing and our video in the peak season because we're serious about getting this home sold immediately. We have beautiful photography ready to go. We took it in September. We also have the price selected. The MLS is already filled out. So the minute you accept our offer, you can be assured that we're going to press go on the MLS. And just think about when you are on the market, which buyer, if they're contingent on selling, are you going to be leaning towards? Buyer one, who's making a bunch of promises about getting on the market and that it'll sell quick, or buyer two, who can actually showcase a package with that offer that they're ready to go. And so that's what we're targeting. It's because here's the thing. When you couple the ability of being ready, being prepared, and actually break down the two types of buyers that are contingent on selling, which one is stronger, that's powerful. But what's even more powerful is showing them the scroll on, your realtor.com app of all the different properties and showing which ones stand out and pop off of the phone versus others. And do you want to be in that position? Let's go ahead. I'm going to invest in all the photography, all the video right now while your property looks the most beautiful. We've got the best lighting. The grass is flush up there in the Northeast, Lisa, because of all the rain this summer. It's looking very nice. Take advantage of that. Use it to your advantage and stack up listings. Even if they're not going to be ready till February, that's great. You've got great marketing. Make the investment in having 5, 10, 15 listings in your business that are on the shelf so you can take them off and put them right onto the market when that seller is ready or when they found that next home as the inventory continues to move throughout the winter.
Yep. So I'll tag team off. We're taking that exact strategy with folks who bought from us in 2022, especially.
Okay. So just specific to your buyers.
Wow. Right. Yeah, exactly. And even because there's tools like Remine and some other stuff where you can start to kind of
PropStream.
find. Yep.
Mhm.
We got a link down below for PropStream. We should.
Big fan of PropStream.
Me too. Check it out. But so folks who bought, especially starter homes, thinking 3-bed, 1-bath ranches, things where we know that they likely settled in 2022 because interest rates were so high. They are coming up on their 2 years of ownership. And we know that rates right now are lower than they were in 2022 and the beginning of 2023. So those folks are keen to move and may actually be able to upsize a little bit and save some money on their monthly payment when they factor in the equity that they've obtained and stuff. So I think anybody who isn't looking for those opportunities as well, maybe slightly outside of your database, if you don't have a huge database or don't have a great book of past business, I think that there's opportunity there to take some of the BAM in the box stuff, leverage direct mail, leverage, whatever you can get for contact information and try to find those consumers, tee them up with the strategies that you've just said, Byron, and really kind of find inventory and clients that are ready to go.
Yeah. And so in Lisa's market, Boston and New Hampshire and Northern Mass and all, all in that area, that strategy makes sense. 22, you've actually had, price acceleration. If you're in a market where you haven't since 22, you've actually seen deceleration on home price appreciation, then you're going to shift on a different strategy. Right. So you have to take in that micro component of what's happened in your market with pricing. And listen, there are opportunities in all of this data. So, if you're in one of those markets where the inventory is skyrocketing and the price is actually going down, I'd make the argument of, can you hold this property for another 12 to 18 months? Or should you get out now before this price moves further? Because it's going to take a while. You're every week, like in this market in particular, you're seeing more and more and more come onto the market. The amount of building, the amount of people that flipped, right? There's a lot of people that came down, bought something, in 21 more specifically. And, when I go back to work full time, I'll be able to use that on vacation. Now that there's not as many people coming down with the state of the economy in general, there's a lot of vacancies on the people who thought, well, if I don't use it, I'll just rent it. They're not able to rent these properties out as easily. They're not using it. Those are going on the market. Or people who have just changed their mind in general about, Florida from, when it was the only state that was open to now every state is obviously open. They may want to go back home, be close to family and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another strategy here that enough people don't utilize if you're trying to figure this out, and we've got some really good data on it, is the video CMA, because people are kind of curious. It's shocking to me. I don't know if this has happened to any of your agents, where we do an open house. We got a listing we're launching right now, and people are shocked by the pricing. And it's folks that are maybe they thought they were locked in, but they don't really realize. And if you can educate people, again, what we're talking about here is education. We're in the business of selling homes. You're going to get a 16-to-1 ratio of conversion on a video CMA. This is documented through thousands of these things that have been done. So, if your discipline is, hey, you know what, I'm going to do 3 of these a day, 5 days a week, you might be able to, produce some potential sellers in that. You can go right into your database and do these things. And it's, again, it's the unresponsive people. It's people you haven't talked to that aren't like top or bottom of the funnel. There's so many ways to go out and get listings right now. But there's a lot of like sweat equity in it. We've talked about this at length on our accountability calls. That's another strategy you could use for that exact situation, Byron, or Lisa, someone from 2022, wow, my home's worth what? And maybe that changes their whole mindset just because they're not thinking about it. We're just giving options.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree. Lots of sweat equity being inside of your, database. And I mean, we talk about Mosaic on this pod as much as it comes up, but that's another place where you're just nurturing. Especially if you have that long-term person who's thinking about selling, you got to stay in front of them with value. It's really important, because if somebody tells you they're a year and a half out, sometimes they're like on a shorter timeline and they're just saying that, but there's a lot of times where that is the timeline. And so what's your level of communication and value? And how are you framing how important it is for you to get in the door 12, 18 months before they go on the market? So maybe timing is right on capturing photography and marketing and all of that, but also so that you can just build the plan to execute perfectly when you do go to market. Many sellers are going to resist that unless you present a strong enough case, a strong enough reason why. The smart sellers, the ones that make the most money, take those meetings with you 12, 18 months in advance. And just waiting around for them to call you is a bad move, because sometimes they just go path of least resistance. Maybe their neighbor gets their license, and that's what the deal is. In 12 to 18 months, you see a sign go up and your name's not on it.
The follow-up is key. And that's where I think most agents drop the ball.
I think the follow-up with like what Tom's talking about too, where I'm bringing a level of education. I'm bringing a plan and certainty behind what I'm saying so that you want to listen to me. I'm not just going there 12 to 18 months and saying, oh, it's going to be a good idea to take the pictures off the fireplace. Let's
Right.
that'll, if you got 12 to 18 months and your best tip is to declutter, you're not bringing any value. They can look that up on the internet.
Yeah, and I think the other side of it, we have a Zillow seller account. We were on a call the other day, and I was going deep into our database to kind of look at some stuff. And one of the mistakes that I saw, even with our team a little bit, was the seller saying, "Yeah, I'm going to be ready for the spring," and the follow up being pushed out too far. And
Yeah.
often we'll find that the seller who says the spring actually means the winter, and by pushing that follow up out, by not having the value prepared, by not wanting to be salesy, by not wanting to be pushy, they actually cost themselves the business. So super important to have the items of value or the valuable touches lined up, but then keep it dialed in at a cadence that's not going to potentially cost you the business.
Nobody likes an aggressive agent until they have one, Lisa. And I mean, I've said this to people on the phone. They laugh, and I'm like, I'm more politely persistent, but this is what you want from your agent, right? And
Right.
the more you do that, we know what the stats are. Over 70% of people will hire the first agent they meet with. So, Byron, your point of getting in there early, that's a winning move. You've just increased your odds. Let's follow the data. And one thing I will say that's worked really well for us is, I'm not one of these agents that goes and stages my own listings. I don't know that that's necessarily a great thing to do. I like a gigantic television and some leather furniture. Like, that would be fine with me. But we have a listing manager on our team. This is one of the first hires I made, and we've got two of them now, and they will go out and help the seller get the property ready. They'll tell them what to do. They've got, what the personal touch there. That's a major value add. And hey, in order for our listing manager to come out, let's move ahead and formalize the relationship. That costs me money. And that's so different than what most people do. That's helped me get so many listings in the winter that hit in the spring, Byron, just like you're talking about.
Yeah, I want to be clear on one thing. I'm not discounting staging.
I'm not either.
I was probably 7-8 years ago, when I was just a listing machine, and I never staged anything. And then Nicole White, who does the Real Word Pod with me, when we started working together, she really turned me into a true believer of the power of staging. I mean, it can separate your property not only from others, but increase sale price. There's a lot of value to staging. But my point is, if you're just coming in there with those DIY staging tips 12 to 18 months in advance, that's really not going to secure somebody's, signature that you came over and said you think you need to declutter. Here's the other mistake agents will make is, I really want to see you have everything put together. They say, notice what I said there. I really want to see you get prepared and have a strategy to go to market. That doesn't work. That doesn't connect. The minute you say that to a consumer, I really want you to, you're coming from a good place. Your heart's in it. I get it. But it's the framing, and you get tuned out within 3 words. I really want, I really think, I doesn't matter. Okay. Hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but here's what we've seen with sellers and then give them an actual story. Prove what you're saying to be true. So showcase a case study, showcase, something where it's worked, and so that they can see themselves in that situation. A lot of agents will say, I got such a great business. I don't want to focus on social media. Here's one reason to focus on social media. Agents need to be better storytellers when they're in front of clients. If you can't tell a story and articulate it where they can feel it and see how it's going to affect them, you're going to do less deals. You're going to meet less people, and you're going to get less signatures and less buy-in on what you're selling. They've got to feel it. You becoming a good storyteller, and like when I said buyer 1, buyer 2, that is something that if you're going to be a seller someday and you're trying to buy contingent on a sale, starts to make a lot of sense. You're now able to feel the process before it happens. as opposed to you just saying, I think you should do this. That's not good framing, even though the advice might be exactly the same.
It just shows you the intricacies of being a high-level listing agent. The scripting matters. How you present it matters. The strategy matters. This isn't, I just got to go wow where I sold the most homes. And then having a real connection with people on top of that and them believing you. Case studies work, Byron. Like feel, felt, found. Like that's an old school way to tell stories. And it's a really easy way to do it. Like, hey, Byron, I get how you and Nicole feel here. And, you know, a lot of my clients, they felt the same way. And what they found was this pre-launch strategy that we have to ramp up traffic rather than just popping up on the MLS and taking the time with our listing managers to make sure that your home's going to show and elicit that right emotional reaction when people walk through the door is going to be very critical. And it's helped them get to where they want to go, which is exactly what you want, right? I mean, you can use that to tell stories like that. Feel, felt, found. If you're having trouble with this, start there. That's one of the most old school and successful sales language that you can implement literally right now as soon as you're done the pod.
I think that's a fantastic opening. And I think what's better is after you open, you say exactly what Tom said. You said, but you know what? I actually don't want you to take my word for it. And in the listing appointment, or in the appointment, you actually call one of your clients and say, hey, I'm sitting here in front of Tom and he's in the same position you were. We did this. Can you just share with Tom what your experience was on that? Everyone's looking to sit their clients down for a video testimonial that, I don't know, maybe 3% of the people who are going to work with you will watch because it feels very canned. It looks very canned. Or, you got to have Google reviews. You have to have your Zillow reviews. You should have as many reviews as you possibly can. That's table stakes. But I'm really passionate about the ability to disrupt a presentation with real time value and proof. What is the social media that hits the best? Just think about your algorithm. When you see stuff that feels canned, scripted, but you might scroll and then boom, you get something that is off the cuff, that is super authentic. You see engagement go up, you tend to stop. And so if you can disrupt your presentation, have a planned presentation, but where that conversation goes, or even plan these moments of serendipity into the presentation where you stop it, prove something. And I've been talking to agents about you're going on a listing appointment. Why don't you already have one of two listing videos done on about, you're going on a listing video, appointment, and you say, listen, everybody you're interviewing, I'm sure, is doing, a listing video that looks just like this. Now they might be thinking, no, the other guy's not doing this listing video with the drones and the high production. And here's what ours look like. Here's how we're running. Here's how we're using driven leads to run YouTube ads to every single one of our listing videos, whatever the case may be. But I've also already shot the first video. We don't just stop at one video. And then this one is just you saying, hey, I'm sitting at the corner of 123 Main Street. There's a listing that I'm coming to the market with very soon. And I know many of you have reached out to me about this neighborhood in the past. If you're still interested in this neighborhood, do me the favor of just refreshing my memory in my DM because there's going to be a lot of activity on this property. It's close to this, it's close to that. You've got a tree lined street, whatever. And you just show the seller that, like, I already have the first video done. I know we haven't signed, you haven't contracted me for my work, but this is how prepared I am before I even get the signature, and I'm ready to get to work for you. Just being that level of professional and giving a little bit. And oh, by the way, if they list with somebody else, you can still use the video, because if you frame it like there's a property coming on the market very soon, you just talk to the listing and, hey, congratulations, I'm going to help you promote this. You pop the video up there. You can still use it as content.
You know what I think it is? I think it's just being different, right? That's the one thing that I hear from both of you guys whenever we talk about this kind of stuff, is that your listing presentations are different than every other agent that walks in the door, does the tour, presents the CMA, talks about what they do. and presents a net sheet, maybe not, and then asks for a signature.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for being different, being memorable, and I'll use Tom's word, professional.
Love that. All right, we got one more story to cover here because we only got a couple
Coffee
minutes
delivery.
left.
Coffee delivery on the pod.
Wow.
Can we get BAM to have a coffee delivery at each of our offices here? I mean, the private jet was late picking me up yesterday for the walkthrough, so be nice to get that little perk there like Byron has. So interesting news from that people call this like the portal wars, or these companies that are out there, Realtor.com, Zillow, CoStar, and there was something that happened a couple days ago, and it was not in the domestic U.S. It was overseas across the pond, where REA Group, a subsidiary of News Corp, who also owns Realtor.com, said on Monday that it was considering making an offer to buy Rightmove, the largest real estate portal in the UK, and that this is right after that CoStar bought one of their competitors, and they acquired On the Market, the rival real estate portal in the UK, for about $126 million in December. Very interesting stuff here. These companies don't like each other. I mean, it's very clear, and so I mean, they are just going at it in all facets here. Lisa, I want to get your reaction first, because I would argue you're probably the deepest in the portals, and knowing these folks more than Byron or myself out of the three. What do you think about this?
She's deepest on the elbow rubbing, that's for sure.
Yeah, brown nosing.
Don't be jealous.
She's gonna get her whole hotel to herself at the next RDC event.
If you want
exactly.
If you want anybody to give you any time of day at any of the major real estate portals, just ask Lisa for an introduction, or you're gonna get ignored.
Oh my God.
All right.
Salty. I think it's fascinating. I think it's very indicative, right? Here's my thoughts on it. The portals are getting more and more traction, not just in the US, but globally, right? And I think agents who aren't keeping an eye on the fact that the consumers gravitate towards the portal are missing opportunities. Love them or hate them, consumers think about, you say real estate to anybody in the United States, they think Zillow. I'm going to be sure that in Australia and in the UK, it's going to be one of these two, right? Rightmove or On the Move, or I just butchered both of those. But my point is that, Rightmove, that I think it's super interesting that such big players are making a move towards the areas that they think dominate consumer mind space with respect to real estate. It's clearly profitable, right? There's clearly money to be made. Both of these folks are spending big money, right? I don't think they published what News Corp is spending, but CoStar spending $126 million means that they believe that there's big profit to be made there, which means portals aren't just a thing in the United States. It's not just Realtor.com and Zillow, but it's a global thing. And I think it's super important to be paying attention to with respect to the importance of building your brand, but also not totally turning up your nose at the power of the portals.
I did an interview earlier this year with Matt Nicol by Transaction Count, UK's #1 agent. And
how many transactions, out of curiosity, is #1 in the UK?
That's a good question.
I mean, this was based on his, but he was doing somewhere upwards of 500 transactions.
Okay.
And I mean, so whether he was I don't know.
That's a lot of transactions anyway, you slice it.
Or whatever the case may be. But he was doing does a substantial amount of transactions. And remember, those are all listings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all listings. 100% of his business is listings. That's why the interview was so fascinating to a lot of people in the industry. I got a lot of reactions out of it because there were some agents that didn't realize what that model was. We still need to have Damien come back and talk about this.
He did promise to come back on. We got the verbal commitment here.
Yeah. So anyways,
yeah, Lisa's got him on speed dial. He's in her favorites.
Move, which is, Realtor.com, Rupert Murdoch's company here, News Corp, Move, Realtor.com, however you want to break it all down. They believe that this acquisition would, right? Because they would be acquiring the company here, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That's
they believe
exactly
this
what's
would give
happening.
them a lot of synergy between what they have in Australia, which Damien knows very well, and then over in the UK. CoStar's obviously made their acquisition. Zillow owns something in the UK as well. And Matt talked about it on this pod. I'm pretty sure they do own something, unless I'm misremembering. Anyways, these portals over there, even though 100% of their listing, of their business is listings, this is what I thought was most interesting talking to Matt. The portals are everything. So, Lisa, it's so interesting because Matt spends, 7 figures a month on all these portals. He just started spending on CoStar when I talked to him 5-6 months ago, but he was already spending with the other big portals, which is this one here that they're talking about.
7 figures a month?
7 figures, 10,000, more than $10,000 a month.
7
That's
figures
five
would
figures.
be
5 figures, not 7 figures. 5
$1
figures.
million a month.
Boy. 5 figures a month.
The math wasn't working in my
So
head.
tens of thousands a month. And you would say, why? If there's no buyer business, their model obviously generates activity on their listings, so it's placement. But he also gets a lot of seller leads. And so why they've figured this out in the UK on the portals, and not as, in America, we just play this like, race to the bottom on seller leads. Like, it's the open door model of, sell your house with absolutely no strings attached. And then you open up the contract and there's nothing but strings popping out at you. So, I don't know why that difference is. But the portals, just to think about the changes that have happened here. I know a lot of people have said, well, we'll see what happens to Zillow or realtor.com or whatever. They're going to get stronger, and they have the UK models to point to. And by Rupert Murdoch, I'll finish here, by Rupert Murdoch going and, having interest in this acquisition of the largest portal in the UK shows you the belief in the future of real estate portals. They're not backing off, they're reinvesting here, doubling down.
I Googled, and it's Rightmove and Zoopla that are the two big ones.
Yeah,
in
Zoopla's the other one. That's probably the Zillow owned one, because Rightmove.
No, it's owned by a company called Silver Lake. So I don't know that Zillow has
Okay, so
anything
maybe Zillow doesn't,
in the UK.
because CoStar owns On the Market. And who owns this?
Zoopla is owned by Silver Lake.
Okay. Anyway,
I think your point here, Byron, is well taken, right? I mean,
yeah,
you look at Rupert Murdoch. I mean,
I would encourage agents to know everything about, even if you're not going to do online leads, you're against it, whatever the case may be. I would know everything about the products that are being, positioned against you. If you're not using Zillow Listing Showcase, if you're not using, Zillow as a lead source, or you don't have the ability to because you're not on the team that owns the contract or whatever the case may be, or you're not using realtor.com, I would absolutely know everything about these portals, because they are 100%. If there's anything I'm certain on in this business, I'm 100% certain that these portals are not going away as brands of choice by consumers. So at the very least, know everything there is to know about them in your markets.
Well, I think we've heard from many, of like coaching groups and everything else, or these inbound leads that we get. They're abandoned clients from other real estate agents in a lot of cases, and because they haven't kept in touch with their database, their network, the people they've transacted with. There's massive opportunity there, and that's just how this goes. And we've obviously seen it. I think you mentioned the seller lead question, Byron, and my hallucination here is that it's a different model over there, how they work. So that might be why they're able to generate leads like that, versus buyer agency's been such a thing here in the US. That could very well be the case. I don't know, but they
do it off the sweat equity stuff, from what I understand. The market valuation reports, they call it something a little bit different, but here in the US, the portals haven't been able to pull that piece off. Off of getting a marketing report meeting with a professional agent. They haven't been able to pull that off at scale at all. The only online lead that's really worked at scale has been we'll buy your home cash, the iBuyer routine.
Mm-hmm. What else we got
All
here,
right,
you two?
311. I
We'll
got
call it a day.
Yep.
Good
to
pod.
have-
Good to be back together. Thanks for having me,
Yes.
guys. We really appreciate that.
I'm glad you could fly in from your office at over at Billions. It's very nice of you.
No, this is the
Not
Succession
Billions.
office.
It's Succession. I knew. I got it mixed up.
I have another background with Billions. Billions. I can watch Billions every day. I could watch that show every day. I never get sick of it. Greatest show ever.
Our dog is named after Wags. Little known fact.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. On August 17th, the rules of the game changed. You know that. And now there is more opportunity than ever for the best agents to capture market share. Talking about the agents who are true knowledge brokers, expert advisors to their clients, and masters of the craft. You're one of those agents. That's why you're here. Or if you want to be one of those agents, one thing you need to do right now is invest in your client experience. We all have CRMs, but CRMs are designed to nurture and convert leads. You can't treat your clients like leads. That's one of the biggest reasons agents lose referrals and repeat business. What you need is a CEP, a client experience platform, to give your clients the best digital experience possible. The CEP my team and I use is Mosaic. Mosaic kicks in when a lead becomes a client, providing a seamless experience from search to closing, transaction management to long-term client retention. It gives you all of the tools you need to impress your clients and showcase your value, helping you generate more referrals, repeat business, and client loyalty. Mosaic is a huge competitive advantage for agents, but spots are limited in each market, and some are already full. Head to mosaic.io or click the link in the description to see if there's any available. Head to mosaic.io, or click the link in the description to see if there's any availability in your market. Don't miss your chance to build a lasting edge over the competition. At BAMx, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMx in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMx, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMx.